Hey, welcome back to Dad Drinks, where every pour tells a story. And this week is going to be Martini Week. So we're going to start off with probably the most iconic martini of all, which is the James Bond shaken but not stirred. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why you shake stuff versus why you would stir it and what that says about Mr. Bond. Now, in every movie starting with Dr. No, back with Sean Connery, right up until Casino Royale, where Daniel Craig took over, all Bond would order basically in those movies was a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. But that's actually not his original order. Casino Royale was the first book that Ian Fleming wrote in the James Bond series. And in that, he specifically orders what he wants while he's sitting at the poker table. Although in the book, I don't think it's poker. It's probably baccarat or something like that. In Casino Royale, the movie, Daniel Craig is sitting around with the villain and with the guy from the CIA and everybody else, and they're all sitting around the table playing no limit poker. And the bartender comes up to him, or the host, and says, "Would you like something to drink?" And at first he orders something, and then he says, "No, wait." And he gives him a very specific order, and that specific order for the martini is what is known as a Vesper Martini, which is named after his love interest in Casino Royale, Vesper Lynn. So what he asks for is, he says to the bartender, "I want a martini made with 3 measures of Gordon's," which is a really cheap vodka. So we're not going to use that. We're going to use Bombay Sapphire. And we're going to do 3 ounces of that. So that would be 3 measures. It's basically, when he's saying measures, he means parts. So 3 ounces of Bombay. One measure of vodka. So that's going to be 1 ounce of vodka. Half an ounce, he asked for half a measure of Lillet. Lillet is a French dessert wine that is no longer available. You can't get it. So what we have to do is we are going to have to sub in dry vermouth. So that's going to be half an ounce of dry vermouth. And you're going to put that all in. I already did that, huh? You're going to put that all in your mixing cup with a lot of ice. So you're just going to put your top on. Shake it up. You want it nice and cold. So once you have it mixed up, take it apart. Strain it into your cooled martini glass. You should have your martini glass like in the fridge, or even in the freezer, whatever, because you want a cold martini glass. Then, where did we put it? Oh, here it is. Get a nice long peel of lemon. Squeeze it. See how it got a little misty there? Then around the edge of the glass, then you put it in there. And that, my friends, is the Vesper Martini. So, the question is, why do we shake and not stir? Why do we stir and not shake? And it all kinds of comes down to, what kind of drink are you making? And what's in those drinks? And what do you want out of that drink? So basically, we shake things that would have citrus juice, eggs, cream, that kind of stuff in, where we want it to emulsify and mix together. And basically, when you shake all that up, what you're going to get is you're going to get a lot of dilution. You're going to get a lot of air bubbles. And everything is going to kind of mix much better together. So with things that have citrus or juices or eggs or cream, that's kind of what you want. To stir stuff, stirring is mostly in spirit-forward drinks. Things like Manhattans, Old Fashions. The classic martini made with gin and vermouth, you want to stir up. And the reason why you stir them up is because you want them to, for lack of a better term, to pop. You really want to have that burst of the spirit coming out of it. And you want something that is smooth, that has clarity, that you can see through and all that other stuff. You can see, to some extent, this martini is a little bit cloudy. And the reason why is because in this particular case, even though we don't have citrus, or we don't have eggs, or we don't have cream, what we did have was we had a lot of ice inside of the shaker. And if you think about it, small little cubes of ice, they're in the shaker, it's all made of metal, so what's going to happen? What's going to happen is as they bounce around, they're going to break up. And you can't see it because we don't really have super high definition, I think, here. But in this martini, there are actually little flecks of ice, very small pieces of ice, but they are in there. And what is that going to do? Well, that's going to dilute it as it melts, and it's going to melt relatively quickly. You know how when we're making like the old fashioned, or some of the drinks that we made last week, the construction bent drinks, where we poured it was the rusty nail and the galvanized nail, and when we poured it out of the mixing cup after we stirred it, we put it on a big rock of ice. That's because it's going to take much longer for that big rock to melt down and actually dilute your drink. So the idea is that by the time that has melted, you've already finished your drink. That's not the case with this. And this is probably why when Ian Fleming wrote the novel and wrote Casino Royale and made this big iconic thing for James Bond, that James Bond was going to drink martinis that were shaken, not stirred, was because it would dilute out the alcohol. If you're a British super secret spy with a 00 license to kill, you don't want to be drinking like Bond does in most of these movies, drinking excessively and getting drunk. Now, in all reality, is this going to not make James Bond get drunk if he's drinking as much as he is in those movies? Probably not. But suspension of disbelief, that's the thought behind it. That's what a lot of people who are fans of James Bond or fans of those books in those movies, that's what they'll tell you, is that's the reason why he orders it shaken, not stirred. So, like I said, this week, what we're going to do mostly is martinis. So keep an eye on the Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky pages, and we will see what different martinis we can make. Now, here's the thing. This is usually what I say to you guys, right, is you do you. I don't care. Like, we make old fashions. You want to use Blanton's. You want to use Pappy Van Winkle. Go right ahead. It doesn't matter to me. But this is one thing that I am going to say, is that just because it comes in a martini glass doesn't make it a martini. So we're going to try and stick to classic ones. One of the ones I'm going to do this week that I know of already is the one that Blake Lively makes in the movie A Simple Plan. That one's going to be, I think, fun because it's interesting. I've watched the clip a couple of times, and as she makes it, she pulls out the gin, and of course it's a bottle of Aviation, which if you know Blake Lively and you know Ryan, you know that Ryan owns Aviation Gin. So obviously that would be a product placement in the movie. And I'm going to have to see if I can actually make that the way she does, if Mrs. Dad Drinks will allow me to make a mess in here, because she basically just swirls the vermouth around in the cup and then throws it out on the ground. So we'll see what happens. I got a couple of other ideas for a couple of other martinis. Probably just a classic gin martini. This is a gin vodka hybrid. The classic vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred. Except we'll do stirred, not shaken. So keep an eye on the Facebook pages and the Instagram and all that other stuff. And cheers. Please hit like and subscribe, and visit daddrinks.com for recipes, merchandise, and more fun stuff.